Take a bit of water. So here we are, take 2.
Yes, attempt number 2. I'm sorry, Matt. My bad. Guys, we were 15 minutes into recording this when I realized that my microphone was not working. You wouldn't say that I'm the person that does most of the filming at Mossy Earth, but well, here we are. So maybe I can start, Matt. What are we?
Yeah.
You know, where are you? What are you? What does it look like where you're at? Because I cannot see you. I know sort of that you are near your place, and I can visualize it somewhat. But yeah, tell me, how does it look around you?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm in the south of Portugal. I'm actually at home in my garden. I'm at the bottom of my land. There's a small stream to my left. It's actually dry because it's summer, and I'm surrounded by long dry grasses, sort of 50 shades of beige and brown. But there's some wonderful olive trees and cork trees behind me. So yeah, I imagine it's very different to where you are.
Yeah, are those olive trees yours, Matt?
Yes. Yeah, actually, I've got there's 30 olive trees on the land, and last Christmas everybody got olives for Christmas. So I did a bit of curing my own olives. Some successful.
I didn't
some
get
not
any
so
olives for Christmas.
You probably didn't want them. More went bad than they went well. So.
Do you like the little
Next
black
Christmas.
ones?
Yeah, little black ones.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in the complete opposite end of Europe, really. I'm in northern Norway. I'm in a forest of Norway spruce, firs, and downy birch, and I'm sitting on a patch of moss, very in theme with our mossy earth, and patch of moss covered in blueberries and crowberries. So a very delicious patch, although it's so late in the season now that most of the berries are starting to become bad, but still a few snackables around me, so very nice place to be.
Still some edible ones.
Yeah, still some edible ones. These are the bilberries, so not the ones that you normally see in the supermarket, or at least Americans call it a bilberry. Here in Europe we just call them blueberries, but they are much smaller. But when you pick them, and you pick enough of them, and you sort of leave them in the fridge for an evening, next day throw them on your porridge, and they're amazing. And that's the main thing I think of Nordic forests that I love, is that you can spend all summer picking things to put in your porridge, and it makes it really delicious. So I really enjoy that aspect of these forests.
Nice. So olives here, blueberries where you are, and yeah, what are we doing? What is this? This is Q2 quarter 2 Q&A, but it's morphing into something different, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think calling it Q2 Q&A doesn't really roll off the tongue, So I think our objective now is to turn this more into somewhat of a podcast, of a place where we can talk about the things going on at Mossy Earth at a bit more length. And from my perspective, I think it really comes from the fact that as our videos have become more editorial on the channel in Mossy Earth, I feel like we're missing out the chance to communicate about a lot of different projects as well, and just to communicate about them at length, because we have so many things that we're trying to do that I think are really interesting, and that I think our members would like to hear about, and that our general YouTube audience would like to hear about, well, and anyone else, out there, wherever we end up putting these podcasts, that it just feels like it'd be nice to have this sort of opportunity to talk long form. And yeah, for me, the side goal there also being like, I think often because you've been so busy with projects, dealing with businesses, working on the course, etc., and I've been so busy filming, we've not sort of had this chance to, the two of us together, work on communicating with our members. But I mean, you started Mossy Earth with me all those years ago, and yeah, I think it's important to have your voice also a bit more represented.
Yeah. I think you make a good point. There's always so much going on, and we need that space to be able to just perhaps go down the rabbit hole on some of these things, to speak long form, also to look at things more broadly. Yeah, I think it's a good space for this, and we did a couple when we started, didn't we? I do recall us doing this
with
in
Hannah.
some form at the beginning with Hannah also.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a phoenix from the flames, I guess, bringing it back.
It's a new
which
thing.
I think is a nice way to a new thing. But I think it's a nice way to kick off as well. Is just a quick history lesson for perhaps new members, new subscribers, new people in the community as to how Mossy Earth started. We've probably mentioned it before in some places, but I thought it'd be a nice opportunity to give that history lesson. So I mean, I can give my side of because I was only asked yesterday actually how Mossy Earth started, and I realised as I was explaining it that I sort of give the same little story each time, which I can share here, and then you pull me up if over the years I've lost some detail. But essentially, Duarte and I met through a mutual friend who's now a colleague at Mossy Earth, Tom, and we were both at stages. I always say in our respective careers, Duarte, you say perhaps jobs, but essentially we were a bit tired, a bit long in the
Sorry,
tooth.
Matt, I have to jump in because I was sitting sunburned in a small, I don't want to call it a hotel in Indonesia, with some second degree sunburns and about 600 blisters on my back. Really just figuring out how to scrape a few bucks together to continue traveling. So I wouldn't say that it was you could call it a stage in a career, but that was more or less what I was doing when I wrote this blog post that you reacted to.
Sure. So we'd met at I remember we met at a beach and we both wanted to do something related to the environment, the outdoors, both outdoorsy people, and we were over a couple of beers throwing all sorts of different ideas around together. And then some time passed, a couple of months perhaps, when you were in sunburn in Indonesia and I was actually in Nicaragua and saw this post that you wrote about the environment, about nature, about carbon, and I actually just put a throwaway comment, when are we going to get our thing started? And didn't think too much of it, and the next minute we had our first call, probably within 24 hours, 48 hours later, and I guess just putting one foot in front of the other. 7 years have gone by and we've got this fantastic team, fantastic projects, and really lots of exciting things planned for the future. Anything I missed there apart from the sunburn?
Well, there's 7 years worth of work there. But I think, the biggest thing from those 7 years for me is like what you said, like one step at a time is sort of how we took it. But I think maybe for context for everyone, in the beginning we started really focused on planting trees, but quickly realized that we wanted to always do so in the context of rewilding and a bigger, sort of inserted into a bigger rewilding plan. And the more partners we got and the more places we were planting trees in, the more we realized that people needed money and we needed to do other kinds of projects, and we got more and more attracted to rewilding. So we even came up with some very weird inventions, like people could sponsor a square meter of some kind of habitat, like a vulture habitat, and we would then give them a 360-degree photo of this, or these were some people bought them, but they weren't very reliable in sort of generating rewilding funds, and that's when we sort of switched to the membership, which I think has been probably the most important thing for us. We switched to a subscription model, and I think suddenly that allowed us to focus a larger portion of those funds. We still were focusing mainly on tree planting, but allowed us to focus a larger portion of our funds on the rewilding side of things. And it allowed us also to, I think, create a bit of an identity, because suddenly people were telling me I'm a Mossy Earth member, whereas before it was maybe, I bought some trees from you once, and there was a huge difference there. I suddenly realized people wanted to be a part of something like that, and I think that really, for me, created this sense of community that we now have, where people say I'm a Mossy Earth member. I love reading it in the YouTube comments, like, oh, I'm a Mossy Earth member for this many months. Like, I am, and I think that changed really the perspective of things. And then slowly we steered this membership more in the direction of focusing the budgets on as flexibly as possible on rewilding. So slowly we said, hey, we don't want to focus primarily on planting trees because there's all these other tools available that are a lot less well funded and that are significantly more impactful in many cases. So that's I think that's where that sort of, well, it was also a big push from our biologists, right? Like the main thing they were excited about were these rewilding projects that we can implement. So yeah, that sort of changed the direction.
I think also the rest of the team, you know, the people working behind the scenes in things like admin, branding, tech, etc., they also were excited about rewilding. So I remember it being a very easy decision to make that switch.
Yeah, I'd say that's more or less the history of Mossy Earth. Well, just to add, perhaps, that we sort of very slowly pottered along, but very happy with our progress until about 2022, and then sort of when YouTube went crazy, we quickly went from, 4 years of membership, 2,000 members, to in the next 2 years we added another 10,000 members, and that big jump has really enabled us to do a lot. Yeah, that's also part of the more recent story, and allowed us to grow our team and to jump into this next stage that we are starting now.
Yeah, and that leads on to sort of the first topic area we sort of wanted to discuss a little bit, and that's our hubs, isn't it? So we've mentioned these hubs on previous Q&As and in other areas of our communications, but we're working in 4 locations: Portugal, Scotland, Ecuador and Indonesia, and they are projects that we're starting from the ground up and developing a team in those locations, as opposed to in the past a lot more partnership projects. It's not to say that we're still not doing partnership projects. We've made built some fantastic relationships with our partners, and we will continue to work with them moving forward. I think from my last count we've got about 12 or 13 partnership projects currently running, so they are still an important part of Mossy Earth, and we really love working with them. But probably, would you say for the last 12 months there's been this sort of shift and focus on our own hubs for a number of reasons? Did you want to give a couple of reasons from your side?
Yeah, just to what you just said about partners, I just wanted to add that I think there's a real value also in continuing the work that we will be doing with them, in terms of course, funding like really well designed projects that our partners have usually taken like years and years to build, and that we can come in at important times when funding is lacking for them and help them with something really crucial. And also that I think we learn a lot from them, so I can think of all the time when we work directly with a partner, I learn about how they are doing, and this we can then transfer onto our own teams. But yeah, like you're saying, I think there are many benefits to trying to build our own presence, and I think for me the biggest thing is what we can get from these economies of scale. So the larger the projects are, the more sort of opportunities I think we can find to make real meaningful impact at like a relatively low cost, and I think usually we are coming in with our partners, just putting money in a particular point when they've done a lot of the base work to get to that stage. And at this, what we want essentially with this is to create the teams that make this base work, but then opens up like all of these project opportunities that reduces maybe the search time. Essentially, we just know where to put money next, so that we can spend it as efficiently as if we were spending the first £1,000 that Mossy Earth ever spent. So for me, it's about just creating a lot of opportunity, and I think we were chatting the other day also, Matt, like essentially about how also one project builds then on the next, or builds something for the next one. So it creates a lot of continuity, and it allows our teams to build knowledge and sort of move into the next project with a lot more know-how.
Yeah, and know-how is a good point, because when I think of economies of scale, as you mentioned, you might think research, procurement, implementation, these types of things, but it's also knowledge. So that we, being specialized in one area, you build that knowledge. You're not sort of having to relearn something each time you set up, say, a partnership project. So there's an economy to scale as to, from our biologists knowing an area, and then that just has a sort of ripple effect of impact. Also building long-term relationships with stakeholders in an area, and the point of continuity, also connectivity of if you're got a lot of interventions in one area, you can actually build connectivity. So a good example here in Portugal, we're working in an area now between two nature reserves or nature parks, and the part in the middle, we're trying to bridge that gap, so that there's the sort of freedom of movement of wildlife and things. So yeah, a lot going for hubs, and the reasons why we're focusing on them.
Yeah, and I think that there's also something to be said about the fact that we have the opportunity to work on them now, whereas maybe when our funding was smaller, in order to be able to provide sort of a diversity of impact to our members, we wouldn't be able to sort of invest heavily in building a team in a specific location. So we had all the biologists that we would hire, mostly vetting projects and helping run the projects with like our partners. But now we have the opportunity, because we have a bit more budget, to still continue having this nice project diversity and allow our members to have impact in a lot of different ecosystems, but at the same time starting to build these teams that we hope will sort of like have a life of their own in the long run. And I think this gets me also to this point around the opportunity for the money that we put into these teams to multiply, right? So in Scotland is a good example already. So the Scottish team, which works right now on the Cromarty Seascape project, so that's right now mostly oysters and seagrass, and they've managed to already secure some additional government funding through the Nature Restoration Fund to continue our work. So that's sort of like, with a little bit of money that we use for them to write that application, we're able to sort of secure additional budgets to take our impact further. And that's something that we're looking to do like across our hubs, to essentially open up a little bit to other funding opportunities and to multiply the money, like the impact that the money from our members can do, really.
Yeah, and here also in Portugal, the team here are also applying as we speak. So yeah, it's interesting they can almost become self-sustaining through other means of funding. But the Mossy Earth funding is there if they need, and these applications don't come through.
Yeah, exactly. And just to take a step back, for me, Matt, because all these fancy big words, and actually, it's like really fun to work more directly on rewilding. It allows us to use our capacity to solve problems ourselves more directly on the ground, so not just sort of working with our partners only and helping them solve their problems. It's like us solving like the problems that we are finding, and I think it's just a lot more hands-on. So something that only became possible more recently, but something we've always kind of wanted to do.
Yeah,
I mean, me and you, we were planting the first trees that Mossy Earth ever planted ourselves, right? And I always enjoyed being involved in the projects, and I'd say almost between then and now, like, there's been a lot more of like working with partners and a lot less ourselves hands-on, whereas that's now coming back, and I love it. It's just like, it's fun,
Yeah, I was having the same thought as you were explaining that last bit. It's sort of ironic, isn't it? Because that's how we started, was us hands-on, and then for budgetary reasons. But yeah, the long-term goal for both of us was to have these own projects that we can be more hands-on and get involved, and yeah, it's exciting times.
Yeah, exactly. And for
go on.
Yeah, I was just I wanted to quickly check here my technology as well, Matt, make sure that it is working.
Yeah.
And shall we present the hubs a little bit? Because we've not communicated.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we should tell people that this is something that will become a lot clearer in the next probably 4 months. How because we're redesigning the way that we communicate information to you, in order to explain better this concept of hubs, which right now it just has this like ugly name to it. There's just hubs. It's the only thing we. But these on the ground teams, these more regional projects, and yeah, we'll be communicating much more clearly what they are about in the next 4 or 5 months as we change our website and a little bit the structure of things. But maybe we should introduce them now and what their broad objectives are, just so people get an
Yeah,
idea.
sure.
So maybe you want to start with
Sure.
Portugal, where you are?
Yes, can do. Yes, so here in Portugal, we're a team of 5 or 6 now working or looking at the Mirror Basin, so the River Mirror here in the south of Portugal, looking at it sort of from a holistic approach, a landscape scale approach, looking sort of almost from the source of the river to the river mouth going into the ocean, and looking at all the different interventions we can get involved in to help restore the river, promote the biodiversity, protect some of the biodiversity, and some of the projects involved when you sort of zoom out that far is anything from sort of rapid fire detection to removing invasive species to natural regeneration of native trees to supplementary planting in riparian zones. There's lots of different projects involved, protecting some endangered fish and plant species along the river. So loads going on, and we have started, there's actually a project page on our website, started on working with one landowner next to the river who has an abandoned eucalyptus plantation, and looking to remove those eucalyptus for the native trees to naturally regenerate. And actually it's that project that was probably what got the
like what kickstarted it all.
Hub kickstarted. Thank you. Is that so? I moved to the south of Portugal 3 years ago, I suppose, and there was a lot of talk about these abandoned eucalyptus plantations that are problematic because they can help spread wildfire. Some of these plantations, the wood is no longer of interest for people to sell because they can't get the money you could in the past. So they sort of sitting there dormant and not great for biodiversity, of course. But lots of people were talking about it, and I thought, it'd be wonderful if we could find a way to sort of tackle this problem. So it was looking at that problem at first, and then meeting more people in the area, and that sort of then kick-started these other types of interventions. We've started building out this team, building out this
Do you want to introduce the
timeline.
team?
Yes, so obviously there's myself based here, and then we have our conservation biologists, Estrella and Teresa, working full-time in this area, and then we have Flora, who spends about 50% of her role working here in the area, and we hope that 50% can go to 100% in the coming months or years as this expands. And then we have Tiago, also spends a lot of time in Portugal, so he's been spending a large part of his time in the area as well. I think I've got everybody there. And then we're also working with some consultants in the area. So we work a lot with a chap called Udo, who's been hugely helpful in helping us set up some of these projects, giving invaluable advice and working alongside us. So yeah, that's the team at the moment, and I'm confident it's going to grow in the next sort of 6 months to 12 months time.
Yeah, and one of the big things I guess they are doing at this stage is applying also for one of these big grants. Maybe we'll wait until we either get it or don't get it, and then maybe share the news and sort of our thinking around that. But what's really nice, what feels great about their work right now is that they're researching these projects really thoroughly and connecting with all kinds of stakeholders, and whether that will be covered by a grant or whether that will be covered by like our own money, it doesn't matter actually in some way. So the work serves both purposes. So it's really neat to sort of have that opportunity to research a grant and all the work required for a grant, but not really lose out on any momentum that you would otherwise.
Sure. And I'd also, going back to who's on the team, when I mentioned Udo, I'd also forgot to mention his wife Claudia, who's also been invaluable. They work as a team, and she's been also working behind the scenes to help us get where we are today. So yeah, big thanks to Udo and Claudia.
Yes. Yeah, someone needs to keep Udo in check, of course, that is. Cool.
So yeah, that's Portugal, I think, in a summary. Ecuador, do you want to have a...
Yeah, I'll have a crack. So Ecuador, well, I think if you've watched the video, if you haven't seen the video on our YouTube channel, you should just go watch that. That provides you the best context. But I think the core story there is Adriana, one of our biologists. She was traveling there. What was it, last year? Yeah, no, the year before last, and she connected with a lodge deep in the rainforest, a small lodge, and she eventually met the owner, Freddie, who had many dreams and aspirations of protecting the forest there. So when eventually Freddie reached out, like maybe 8 or 9 months later, saying, "Hey, there's this land up for grabs. Someone probably will buy it to put more cattle and cut more forest. Do you want to help me get it and try to protect this area?" We were, we were a bit nervous, but we quickly built up confidence working with Freddie and eventually worked towards buying that piece of land. So we now own a piece of land that borders the Yasuni National Park in Ecuador. And I think the biggest thing that we are trying to, well, actually the land itself is degraded, right? So it has a cattle pasture, it has cacao plantations, and they are going to slowly recover, but that's actually not so complicated. The jungle really is itching to take over, so it'll take over. The part where we want to try and help is to build somewhat of a buffer zone around the national park, because there's a lot of illegal fishing, illegal poaching, illegal logging in the area. The land itself also some gold miners wanted to potentially buy it. There's all sorts of bad stuff happening in those border regions of the national park, and our idea really is to try to create some resilience in this area. And right now our thoughts are converging on creating economic opportunity, so essentially enabling people there to have an economic benefit from having the forest standing. And we're going to try to approach it from a lot of different ways, whether it is something that they can grow, some sort of high value crop that it can coexist with the standing native forests that they could sell, and we could help them access markets, or of course tourism, which is perhaps where I think some Mossy Earth members will be able to come in and visit the area and visit the land and the nearby areas to try to bring some additional income in that way to the whole area. And starting next year we'll have Adriana. So Freddie right now lives on the land, and starting next year we'll have Adriana, Tiago, and Ollie there for a period, and we'll also have 2 volunteers for 6 months. So 2 brave volunteers that will try to work with the kids in the community to help them teach English. And I think some people were wondering, why teach English? Surely we just mostly need to respect local languages and local culture, and we agree 100%. We're actually going to give them some training on that as well. But the big thing is that English there creates a big opportunity to demand a bigger salary, especially in the space of tourism. So being able to speak English with potential guests allows someone to really take a much bigger role in taking those guests in, and allows them to receive a lot more money. So teaching English is a very valuable thing to do. And we're also trying to just keep the kids busy, get them fascinated about nature. So we'll try to get them to connect more with the ecology of the forest, and not just how they know it right now. So to try to provide them with a bit of that more technical side, if you will.
And I think, just jumping in, it was a request from the local community for English,
yes,
wasn't it? It's not like us marching in on a moral high horse to inflict English on them on the local community. It was a request. They've seen in other areas what ecotourism and other types of other types of ecotourism in the area can do for people, and to do that, one needs English to obviously to communicate with guests. I was thinking, I sort of wanted to...
sorry for the English side of things. I even remember some direct conversations with Jaime, our neighbor there, and him saying I tried to learn on the book, but I never had anyone to speak to, and it's sort of he never managed to fully he speaks Quechua mostly, then Spanish is sort of like his second language already. So he's like another degree removed from speaking English, and he was like, that's the most like useful thing I could have had. Like he was like, I never had the opportunity, and that kind of like struck me as, okay, it's clearly something that he values. So yeah, I think it comes from them wanting to learn it.
Yeah, and these often projects in the Amazon, etc., have this connotation of working with communities and it being a sensitive subject, and that's, yeah, Adriana, who's leading the project, that's probably priority number one, isn't it? Is working with the community and making sure that they're as involved in the project as we are.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, then just briefly, the future for Ecuador, I think, yeah, develop these economic opportunities. If some very strategic bits of land come up, we might consider buying a little bit more, but that's not the sort of objective of the project, really. And yeah, economic opportunity. It's a very different kind of conservation work. But alongside it, we'll also be doing some proper scientific monitoring of the local wildlife populations to have baselines to see if things are improving. And maybe we'll also open up some opportunity for like actual research, because, you know, the more you prove how unique this most biodiverse place on Earth is, the more you can create arguments to protect it and to defend it. So I think it's also a really important part to help fund additional research into like the amazing world of the tropical rainforest.
Yeah, and just before moving on to the next hub, just playing devil's advocate, because we've also had a couple of inquiries as to what we feel about sort of promoting people to travel more. Is that sort of counterproductive? But yeah, curious, what are your thoughts on that?
I'd say it's the best carbon they've ever spent if it helps keep the rainforest standing. I mean, of course we have the climate crisis, right? But the climate crisis, the way it worries me most is the repercussions it has on biodiversity. I think human ingenuity will allow us to navigate the rest. But for me, like it's just I think it's carbon well spent, if that makes sense, you know. And I hope also that it would be inserted into sort of a very responsible way of travel, in a way that people would choose to go to the other side of the world, but not do it for a weekend or a week trip, just to try to collect a bit of holiday and set out for a month or something to see that part of the world. And I think that if they would then, out of their 1 month holiday or something like this, choose to spend a few weeks in the Amazon, supporting local communities with important income that keeps these forests standing, I think it's just carbon well spent. But this is, I think, a very subjective, personal question. If you wanted to quantify it, I think it's like, on the one hand, you have the carbon that those trees hold, the biodiversity that those forests hold, against the carbon of flying out there, which clearly seems to be like the biggest negative factor, I think.
Sure. Okay.
How do you think about it, Matt? Do you have any other? Yeah. Do you think differently?
I mean, pragmatically, people are going to go on holiday, right? And if a holiday has a potentially positive effect on biodiversity and the preservation of our natural world, then I think that can only be a good thing. It's supporting the conservation tours will be supporting a local community who want to sort of defend this buffer zone around the Amazon. So yeah, I sort of see it that until, as you mentioned, human ingenuity solves perhaps whether it's different types of plane fuel, whatever. People are still going to go on holiday. People, I think, are not going to stop doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we have a clean, objective answer, but it is a subjective thing. And I would say, if I flew there. Actually, I wanted to sail. I asked Mossy Earth members for a connection to sail there, but nobody came up with a boat for me. So I flew there, and I'm happy with that. I think it made sense. And I think if other people are going to go there on a holiday, I think it makes sense too. But I understand the concern. I think it's a very valid concern.
Sure, no. Me too. Over to Scotland, our third of 4 hubs.
Well, you've been there recently, Matt. Maybe you can... and sorry, who works in the Ecuador Hub? Sorry. Of course.
Yeah.
Freddie is there. I mean, I did mention Freddie is there. on the land. Adriana is the main sort of person coming up with new projects. Freddie is very experienced, of course, on the tourism side, so he will be leading on that. We have 2 volunteers. We have Ollie, who helps with the rope access side of things, and Tiago, once again, who also spent some time there, particularly focused on the drone mapping and the camera trap monitoring. And then, we also work quite frequently, with, of course, with members from the local community, above all with Jaime, who is our neighbor there.
So Scotland. Yes, I was recently there. More specifically, the Cromarty Firth. So it is a community-led project set up by Isla, one of our conservation biologists, and she's working tirelessly alongside Francis and more recently Josie, our latest recruit there, and they are focused on native oyster restoration and seagrass restoration in the Cromarty Firth. And yeah, it's been a frustrating process for them because of the amount of bureaucracy in terms of licenses they've had to get, and with delays on those. So having visited there recently, I really got to see the frustrations they've been facing through bureaucracy, but we really are almost ready to go, just waiting for sort of one more green light.
I'd say from
they've done,
maybe some people don't realize how much paperwork, the mountain of paperwork you usually like to destroy something often happens illegally and happens fast, and but to rebuild something, and if you want it to be all legal and done correctly, it's a lot of paperwork. So yeah, these things take a lot of time from bureaucratic perspective. I remember not knowing much about conservation before we started conservation and rewilding, before we started work at Mossy Earth, thinking this is just, you can just go wherever and do whatever, and actually it turns out that it is almost more restrictive, the restoring aspect, than the destroying aspect, I would say.
And I think my big takeaway from visiting there was the community-led aspect of it. So they get a lot of volunteers involved through different volunteering organizations, but it was just realizing that people really want to help protect their local area, and the people are really connected with their local area. I think that's really cool, especially when you think of oysters and seagrasses. Most of the time you can't even see them. It's not like sort of a forest being planted by local people, but this energy, this drive, this passion to protect their local area, I think is really nice.
Do you want to maybe
this project we're allowing people to do that?
Do you want to maybe help people visualize this area, Matt, this firth, because it is quite of a unique place?
Yeah. Funnily enough, because I only visited it for the first time recently, and obviously we've been on many calls, seeing it on maps, etc. And it was only when I was driving there recently to my accommodation, I was like, hang on a minute, I've driven this many times. So I used to do surf trips up to the north of Scotland, and that's where the road takes you past it. So, and it's funny, all those years ago I used to sort of drive along, thinking, wow, this is just this huge expanse of water that comes in from the sea, but it just looks like this giant lake. So if you head into Inverness, that's the nearest big city. The firth is very close to Inverness, and I would describe it as around the firth there's a lot of agriculture, a lot of small villages. There are some whiskey distilleries. It's a very beautiful part of the world. But yeah, the firth is enormous. I don't know the size of it. I wouldn't know what else to add.
I would just add that from my perspective, it also has, some kind of an industrial side to it. There has these like oil rigs that come in to be repaired there, and it has cruise ships that like that anchor there, and that I find it fascinating that we are working on a project to coexist alongside all of this human infrastructure. Yeah.
When I was driving with Isla, she sort of mentioned, because she grew up with the oil rigs there, it was actually quite, at night, it's quite nice having them there, with their lights on. So they've almost become part of the scenery, part of the environment there. So yeah, that's Scotland.
That's Scotland. Indonesia.
The last one.
Yes.
You've visited there. You've dived there. You did your dive course there, right?
Yeah. So I mean, all of this started when I did my dive master there in 2018. Early days of Mossy Earth, working remote on the season when we didn't have tree planting, and I did a dive master for 3 months, and that's where I met Yudi. Yudi was one of the diving instructors, and yeah, fast forward a few years, eventually Yudi reached out like, hey, you're doing all these projects with Mossy Earth, let's do some coral restoration. And we were at a time that we were ready to do something like that, so that was really good timing. So we paired him up with Ellie, and together they started researching like how we could go about restoring coral, where we should do so. And we ended up saying, as a first project, we're very happy to do it right where Yudi lives. So we started collecting some baseline data. So that's then Yudi sort of recruited his girlfriend Chansa, and together they were gathering. She's also happens to be a marine biologist, and together they were gathering a lot of baseline data. Then we got permission from the marine protected area there to set up a small restoration trial, which we did around the end of 23. And that's when Ellie, our biologist from the UK, also visited. And then we applied for a permit to do a bigger project of about 10,000 structures. So to explain to people so they can visualize it, essentially we're working on an area that has a lot of healthy coral reef, but has in the past had some human impacts, namely, I believe it was fish bombing. There's no proof for the concrete area where we're working in. In the future, we're going to work in areas that have been fish bombed in the last decade. And this involves essentially, dropping explosives in the water and just blowing everything up and then collecting the fish. It's like this absurdly destructive way of fishing. But for some people it made sense for a while. But the Indonesian government has cracked down a lot on this because it destroys a fishery completely. So it's really counterproductive. So if they want to keep any fish around in the future, they need to stop this practice. And they've done, I think, a decent job at stopping it in a lot of places, including where we're working, where it's now quite protected. But there's these rubble areas, these big patches, these big barren patches in between all the healthy coral. And slowly the rubble is also sliding down the hill and covering some healthier coral further down as well. So it's the damage is sort of still increasing, and it's clearly not like recovering on its own. So that is where we want to put in some metal structures and then collect the rubble that coral release naturally through turtles breaking it through the current, pick it up from the nearby healthy reefs, so it's from the same genetic material, and attach it to the structures there so that we get sort of a nice mix of coral attached to our structures, and that they will eventually cover the metal structures and plug the gaps in the reef. It's like probably the simplest of our projects in some way, and that's the beauty of it. It's this kind of factory that is, on the one hand you introduce some sort of units of effort, some materials like metal, and on the other end you end up with a coral reef, and that's it's really cool to see. So since we got the permit, we've started putting in about I want to say 400 something structures every month. So that would be Yudi, Chance, and the team are going in and diving and putting in those structures, attaching them together. And it's progressing really nicely. We're seeing very good survival rates from our monitoring, also from our initial trial. We're currently experimenting with new attachment methods. So we use less plastic in the attachments. We've been using zip ties, but we're experimenting with some other materials to sort of see whether the research that exists online can kind of correlate well onto our project. It's going. It's just such a simple one. It's beautiful in that sense that it's just continuing that work, because there is a lot of places in Indonesia to do this kind of work. And just to then frame it in a more global sense, everyone will be aware that the biggest threat to coral is bleaching, and this remains true even for the Indonesian ones. Although they are in an area where the waters are cooler, and thus they could, out of all the sort of world of corals, they could probably survive longer if through these bleaching events, because the water is cooler. it's still really important to try to create resilience for these reefs. So if these reefs are complete, they don't have other threats, they're well connected, they are large, we can increase their chances if a big bleaching event comes that they will survive it. So it's not addressing the bleaching, it's addressing another problem, but creating some resilience to this potential bleaching problem. And yeah, once we complete this first area, we hope to work on the next one, which we already have lined up, where we will be working with some local fishermen and a local diving community to plug up an area that was bombed, a few maybe 14 years ago. So that's what's next on the neighboring island.
Yeah, and I think the only bit I would add is that in setting up this project, there was a lot of bureaucracy, and I really thought that, Indonesian bureaucracy, I thought that would be the end of it, and we were banging our heads against the wall for some time. But then suddenly, once we got all the green lights, as you said, it's a bit like a production line.
Well, one has to say, Indonesian bureaucracy was easier to go through than British,
UK.
UK bureaucracy,
Yeah. But yeah, now it's started, the sort of floodgates have opened, if you like, and they're deploying at a rapid rate, great survival rates each time they go back to monitor, and there's a little bit of cleaning they do as well on these reef structures. All is going well, sort of touch wood, but it's amazing how once you're given the green light and you've got a methodology and you've got a sort of rhythm, it's amazing what they're achieving there.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the projects that's up and running. I'm actually currently working on editing the video to introduce this properly to our YouTube audience. Our members already know the project, but to introduce this properly to our YouTube audience now, and I'm just really excited to show it to people because it's just such a direct way of rewilding. It's a very visual, it's very clear to see, and it's again. Ecuador is the most biodiverse place where we are working, and the Yasuni is the most biodiverse place on land. And this area, specifically the Coral Triangle near Indonesia, or where this project is inserted into, is the most biodiverse place in the sea. So there's 25% of all marine species live in these corals, despite the corals are only covering 1% of the ocean floor. So it's a really important place to be working in as well.
Sure. I think before moving on from hubs, just the last point I'd probably make is that previously we had talked about creating a hub in Iceland. And so if you were looking back at some of the previous Q&As, we had mentioned it. But after some, and I forget if we mentioned this in the last one, but we realized after some research from Ellie that perhaps now is not the right time to be creating a hub in Iceland, and we don't want to sort of force a hub on an area. So that one's been put on hold for the moment. Not to say we're not going to continue working with partnership projects or continuing the projects we currently have there, but just waiting for an opportunity should it come along.
Yeah, essentially, like from my perspective, I think you need to know when not to do things, and that's sometimes harder than just going in, all guns blazing, just like doubling down on things. And effectively what Ellie did was a really good job at kind of disqualifying Iceland somewhat as an impact opportunity for us, at least from the perspective of creating a local team. We'll continue to work with our partners there, and we will probably find some new partners as well. There's a few wetland projects that I know Ellie is quite excited about because of course they involve birds, and she's a bit of a birder. So we'll continue to work in Iceland. Hopefully we'll expand our work, but not to create this team on the ground. That there our thinking has changed, and I think it was quite brave of Ellie to really go down the rabbit hole and talk with everyone who's doing anything in Iceland to understand where we could fit in, and to conclude that perhaps it is best for us not to work directly there.
Yeah, so 4 active hubs, Iceland on hold or sort of working with current partners, and then we've mentioned continuing partnership projects in other areas of the world. And then I think the last sort of pillar of Mossy Earth is, and quite a recent one, is the incubator or innovation program. I forget what we're calling it, but the brainchild of Tiago and Ellie, with the idea basically giving grants for innovation in conservation. They had both realized that what conservation probably lacks a little bit of is investment in innovation. So that money is not available in conservation. So a lot of organizations or individuals don't want to experiment too much with the funding that they have. And if you make a parallel to, say, medicine, where a lot of money is put into innovation, there's no coincidence that there's huge breakthroughs in medicine. So it's to allow people to experiment, to find sort of scalable ways of working that can then obviously have a greater impact. They're still setting that up at the moment.
Well, I mean,
creating a board.
We can say, Matt, that there is already like a project we've been working on that front for a while, actually, on the termites, in Benin.
Yeah.
So this is a project that Thiago set up already. Maybe it's going on 3 years now, and we're essentially supporting a researcher called Ellie, confusingly similar name as Ellie, the biologist that also forms a part of this. But Ellie, he's based in Benin, and they've been working essentially on figuring out the relationship between trees and termites there, because termites can help hold the humidity of certain areas around the mounds. They also collect seeds and everything, so they create these little capsules that increase the resilience of these forests in these very arid areas. So we're essentially figuring out whether they could have a role to play in restoration, and the kind of money that you need to bet on something like this is well, that's the theme of the whole this whole innovation program, right? Is this idea that you can bet on something that's a bit more risky, that doesn't need to return an impact immediately. So it's a smaller amount of money with a potential huge upside. So if there's a massive breakthrough on in terms of how one can go about protecting and improving the forest in the desertifying areas of Africa, this has implications for many other projects, and we would share this information openly with them so that they could put it to good use. So the potential ramifications of these are huge, and this is the kind of idea that I think that they want to fund with this program.
Yeah, I think that the essence is a relatively small amount of money, which I believe is about 5% of our rewilding budget, is able to just unlock potentially new methodologies and technologies that then can have this comparatively much bigger impact in the future.
Nice. Yeah. So Matt, I think that's the catching up everyone on sort of our impact strategy, right? Like
yes.
So shall we move on to a bit about communication? Because I guess like it can be a bit confusing, because we have a lot of ways we are communicating with members and with our audience. So maybe we could try to summarize it a little bit.
Yes, put a bit of order into it. So where should we start? The account, membership account.
Yeah. So when you're a Mossy Earth member, you have an account. There you can see, I think the two most important things really are the updates that our biologists post frequently. Whenever work is done on the ground, whenever a project has a particularly interesting update happening with it, our biologists will write it up and post it, and people there can read them and then comment and discuss it. We do our best for our team to reply to all the comments. So it's a place to essentially just keep people up to date on the developments of the projects. And the other section is sort of this your impact section in the account, where people can essentially see what their money's done, and here it's divided in terms of actions and costs. So certain month we might be paying for something, so if you have an active membership in that month, we want to let you know we've paid for this. It could be a past project, it could be a future project that's coming up. We want you to know that we've put money towards it, and we also want to let you know every action that we've taken while you've had a membership. So this is what ends up in sort of this your impact section, so you can see everything that your money's done while you're a member. And those are the two main things in the account, I feel like.
Yeah, and when I was looking at this earlier, the thing that I thought about is a lot of our older members. So if you're watching this is and you haven't logged into your account for some time, I think there's been so many really cool changes to the account in the last probably 18 months. If you've not been regularly going in there, go back in there. It's very different to perhaps what what the account looked like 2 or more years ago. So go in there, check it out. There's loads you can get lost in. So yeah, be sure to log in if you haven't done for a while. That was the point I thought.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more. And then in terms of our communication directly to members, we also have our monthly field report, and perhaps we'll spend more time on it in one of the next episodes on this podcast. But essentially, it's a beautifully crafted PDF that tries to summarize all the work that we've done that month. So it's more of a, you can sit down on something like a tablet with a cup of tea and kind of like really spend a bit of time reading through this. And it's just a different way of consuming our updates, but it's tries to capture everything that we've done in that month. We have every quarter a financial report, which we're going to touch on briefly in this podcast still. So that's just essentially reporting some of the numbers, the number side of things, our fundraising capacity. We have an email that usually goes out, what did you say, about every week, right?
Yeah, more or less, yes.
Sometimes we skip one, or sometimes we can send a couple in a week if it makes sense. These emails, of course, bring you the monthly field report, but they also bring you like particular project updates or the launch of a new project. And finally, I'd say also sort of connected to this, but more public on the website, we have our project pages. And in our project pages, we add all the information specifically about a particular project, including the project management plan. So if you were then wanting to learn more in depth about a particular project, that's where you would go. And I think that sort of roughly covers like our account and website side of things. When you say, Matt?
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
Cool. So then maybe, I can explain the YouTube side of things because I'm more involved with that. So the Mossy Earth channel here on YouTube, where we've been posting videos, and the one that has brought us so many members and so much opportunity, we've slowly been sort of moving it towards it being, it was never capable of keeping up with all the updates that we have for you, right? There's too many small little ones, and I think a lot of people have asked over time, like, why not just post all the little ones? Well, it's because for us, the YouTube channel is really important to reach a lot of people and to get new members. And when we post a lot of small incremental updates that aren't, as exciting or as, full of detail as, a Mossy Earth video that you might be used to, then essentially we just get punished by the good old YouTube algorithm. It won't reach as many people, and slowly people will be, on average less interested in our videos, and then YouTube will see that as a signal and allow us to reach fewer people. So for us, the videos on this channel are a bit more editorial. We pick 12 to 16 stories to tell in a given year, and we tell them as best we can, and really go down the rabbit hole and make them as beautiful as you've grown used to. And I think some people then have wondered, is this all that you are doing? No, we are doing all these other things, and that's where we get maybe to some of these other means of communication. So one of the things that we're going to bring to this Mossy Earth main channel is this podcast that we're chatting through right now. So to give an opportunity to long form content, YouTube has created like a podcast feature, so we just thought we'd start to use it and give it a crack as a way of communicating to our members. So we'll be able to, feature things more frequently in this way of talking. So we'll probably cover field reports. We'll cover some of the questions people have. We'll of course cover this quarterly financial report we're going to discuss in a bit, and maybe we'll bring in some team members to discuss some specific topics sometimes. But go for it, Matt.
Sorry, I was just going to jump back to the sort of incremental progress updates on projects. So those, they're not forgotten. They're mentioned. We put them obviously in the account, all those features that Dwight mentioned about the account. And then also there's the Fields Note channel, isn't there, where we can house these incremental progress updates on each project.
Yeah, and it started out a bit slow, the Field Notes side of things, but now we have a structure for it. So we're looking to produce at least a single video for every single one of the hubs every month. So that is Indonesia, Ecuador, Portugal, and Scotland. We'll get one update by the biologist on the ground summarizing a bit what's been going on, and maybe showing specifically one of the instances of the work, and then any other sort of actions. Like recently, I went to help these Swedes find their muskox herd, and it was a whole expedition. And it's just sort of not enough for a main channel Mossy Earth video, but I will put it all together and show it in the field notes. So it's also all kinds of other project actions that we undertake, and the project discussions with Mea. So Mea, as our community manager, she's like kind of the voice of Mossy Earth members. She interviews our biologists when we launch new projects, and those those discussions also go on this channel. And finally, the last YouTube channel here, so that's just the third one. We launched it last week, and it's the Wild Notes channel. And essentially, this is the objective of this channel is to try to increase our impact by providing more education essentially about rewilding, about ecology, and trying to reach more people through that. So this will be the work of Tom Hicken. He has worked with me on the main YouTube channel since January 22, and he has been instrumental in growing that channel. And now we're trying to give him some space to use his fantastic storytelling to educate people a bit more about rewilding, about ecology, find some really sort of interesting niche topics to educate people on. And of course, for us, the additional opportunity will be that we will use this channel to also promote our membership alongside educating people. So promote our membership, promote our course that we now have, all alongside this educational message.
Nice. I think that's communication strategy in a nutshell.
I think it is. Shall we touch now on the financial quarterly report, Matt?
Yeah, I didn't know if it was because you just mentioned the course at the end there. Quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sure. So we launched the course about a month or so ago. Now the idea of the course came from we got a lot of feedback from members when signing up. I've signed up for a membership. Really love what you guys are doing, but is there another way I could sort of get involved myself? So that was where the course came from. So we created an introduction to rewilding, and then how one can get involved. So the introduction part is just sort of giving you the basics in the principles of rewilding and nature restoration, and then it looks into more practical ways one can get involved, whether it's through volunteering, whether it's through citizen science, whether it's through political action, whether it's anything from rewilding your balcony garden, or if you've got a bigger area that you want to get involved in, or even perhaps even setting up a project in your local community. So it's trying to give you the tools to get out there, and that is available on the website, or you can access it through your membership account. It's 6 modules. Ria, our brand manager, and Paul, tech guy, they've done a great job of making it really interactive, so you can take notes as you're working through. You've got the videos, you've got a whole list of slides that accompanying the videos. So it's and we hope that it sort of can have this ripple effect of impact if all our members are then doing something in their own time. It's just a fantastic way of increasing impact, really.
Nice.
Yes,
I agree.
Anything to add on the course?
No, I think it's really cool to have that out, and I look forward to sort of seeing how people take how the course evolves over time, and whether we'll have the opportunity to make new ones.
Sure. Okay, financial report.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bore people with all the detailed numbers, so we can quickly sort of just.
So it's just to jump in, where can one find it if they're not sure? So
these are in the transparency dashboard. So you just go to our website and then see under transparency, and this membership quarterly report is there, sort of further down the page. it's also a very interesting dashboard for you to just see, broadly speaking, what the work that we do. So yeah, check out the transparency dashboard. Yeah, I'd say, and also people will receive it on their email, I believe, when we do send this out. So they'll have another way to get it. So yeah, broadly speaking, I think the big four, or the big two numbers really, is that we grew by 910 members this quarter, and to put that into context, that is 1,387 members joining us and 610 leaving. So we grew by the difference, which is 910. Yeah, essentially, this represents about a 7.17% growth based on the total number of members. And with all of these members, we were able to raise £404,000 from the membership, effectively. So 80% of that will go towards impact. So that is 323,000 will go to impact, and 80,000 has gone to cover the general costs of Mossy Earth. Just to put this in context, last year around this same quarter, we raised about £320,000. So this year represents a 32% increase, which is pretty cool. But I'd say broadly, from my perspective specifically, this was a relatively slow quarter in terms of new members coming in. We had one particularly good month in April when we released this video about the Ecuador project. Even though the video didn't go super viral, it had a lot of new members joining because the project is quite exciting. But the other 2 months weren't as strong in terms of new members.
And just to jump into it, I think this nicely sort of echoes your point when talking about YouTube and why perhaps you wouldn't have the small incremental updates on the main channel because the algorithm doesn't like it. So yeah, it really is. It's sort of that YouTube really does power a lot of our growth. So really important. And as we've seen here in this quarter, a bit of a slow month because perhaps only one main video going out.
Well, sorry, we had more videos going out, Matt, but one that really made a dent, that made an impact.
Sure.
But yeah, essentially, I think if I had to look at a positive, is that if we don't release a video, or if we release fewer videos, or if we have fewer viral videos, we can certainly outpace the rate at which people are leaving. So our capacity to raise funds is growing, even when we don't have a massive success within a given quarter. So that's a good thing to have in our case, to sort of be able to guarantee that we will continue to improve our fundraising capacity. Yeah, I'm quite excited about some videos which will be coming up soon. So hopefully we'll be able to show people some very exciting stories and get a bunch of new members to come in through to the end of the year. So hopefully we'll be able to increase that. But if we don't, it's also not a huge stress. We've built Mossy Earth in a sustainable way that we can sort of just keep chugging along at this current speed. The money that we have to do projects right now is already absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, Matt, I remember when we, we're working with projects of £300, and yeah, so the fact that we've managed to raise all these these £404,000 from our membership base, and we can do this, and we can rely on this for the next quarter and the quarter after. It's just mind-blowing. In a 3-month period. Yeah, in a 3-month period, right? Like, I mean, that's insane. It's a huge responsibility, and it's just so even if we were to not grow much faster, the level at which we are at right now allows us to do so many things. So it's already so incredible. So yeah, I'm not stressing about this, because sometimes I stress about this stuff because of course I want to do more, but yeah, I'm quite content, and it's amazing, to see it. And yeah, then if you go through this report, you can then see how we calculate the monthly impact budget, and sort of how it's broken down in terms of gifts, yearly memberships, the extra contributions that people have made, and so on. So I think I'll leave that exciting reading for people to do on the quarterly report itself. But if you have some questions about it, then please let us know on this video, because maybe we can cover it in a different way in the next video.
Yeah, and I'll just add, because I'm looking at the report now, so for those that perhaps haven't seen one, it really is a user-friendly, it's beautifully designed, and then it's really user-friendly in the way that it breaks down the numbers. So yeah, if you haven't had a look, be sure to go over to the Transparency Dashboard and download it.
Nice. And yeah, Matt, I don't know if you wanted to get into a couple of questions that members might have asked, or if you feel like we've covered plenty of ground.
Yeah, let me just double check, because some of them we sort of we actually covered as we were talking. Just bear with me. Just looking through hubs. Yeah, we talked about Ecuador, we talked about the course update. Yeah, we sort of mentioned that in no, I think we sort of covered everything whilst going through our impact strategy and communication strategy, and then the financial report at the end there. So no, for me, I think we're good for this for this round.
I thought of an idea, Matt, that we could add at the end of these podcasts, and that would be right at the end to give people a bit of a sneak peek on something that's in the works but isn't fully out yet. Reward the people that stuck with our rambling for however long we've been rambling. And what I had in mind was the fact that Ria, our wonderful designer, is now finalizing the first concepts for some clothing, and yes. Maybe we can just tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this a little bit like the course. This comes from a lot of members. I've just signed up, love what you're doing. Do you have merch? I'd be proud to wear it, to spread the word. It'd be having a t-shirt, Mossy Earth t-shirt is a great way of saying, hey, I'm a member, a bit like what you were saying at the beginning of this podcast. So yeah, based on that, we would like to offer merchandise, starting with t-shirts, keeping it simple, but yeah, Ria's done some wonderful illustrations for those t-shirts, and they'll be available through
I don't know, man. I think it might be more than t-shirts. I'm not 100% sure either. Well, okay. we're due to see Ria's designs today. That'll be pretty exciting.
Sure.
But the biggest thing maybe to add is that we've been reluctant to do this for a while because we felt like we needed, to find the right way to do it, and we found a company that seems to be able to do this very sustainably. Like as far as we could check, and as far as Matt, you were involved in this process of vetting them. They seem pretty solid. And it sounded to us like a good opportunity to give people something they wanted and to bring in a little bit of extra income to help us run our team.
Yeah, so yeah, I was involved in the vetting and both ethically and environmentally sustainable as a clothing manufacturer can be, and also recommended through. I have a couple of friends that have their own businesses that are using this organisation. And yeah, like you say, it took a long time coming because we were sort of a bit like the travel conundrum. On the one hand, it's like, do we need more stuff in the world? But then on the other hand, members are asking for it, and yeah, it's a lovely way to sort of show that you are a member and spread the word of what we're doing, if you like. So yeah, we've
to some extent,
long and hard about it.
Yeah, to some extent, right, Matt? Like, I buy my things. If I'm not buying it at a thrift shop, I'm buying it online. So that's, it's the same. It's effectively, right? So the only difference is a bit of the money, instead of going to a profit of a clothing company, it goes to cover some Mossy Earth expenses. That's kind of the difference, I feel like. Yeah.
But yeah, looking forward to this. Looking forward to seeing the designs this week, and then looking forward to getting my hands on a couple of t-shirts myself.
Exactly. And maybe to just wrap it up, people have some feedback on these podcasts. If you want to give us some ideas of what you'd like to hear discussed in future
any
ones,
particular direction, direction you'd like to see us going,
please let us know. Cool. Well, thank you, mate. This was great. This was I think this was fun, actually. I enjoyed sitting in my blueberry patch.
Yeah. Fingers crossed that we both hit record.
Fingers crossed.
The audio is working. But yeah, no, thank you, Duarte. And yeah, as always, a big shout out to all of our members. Because we say it time and time again, but yeah, really, without you, none of this would be possible. So yeah, big thank you to everybody involved, and our team, of course. So
yes, thank you all. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.